Hey, Graham.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. How's things? You were saying last week you're back in lockdown now. I can see the office behind you is a lot emptier than it usually is.
Yeah, well, it's also earlier, but yeah,
True.
it's about like 50% capacity for us, and it's dwindling every day. Like there are fewer people
Mm,
that come in. Yeah, lockdown is crazy. Like they just extended it for another week. Uh, it's pretty bad here.
yeah, fair
How are
enough.
things there?
We're very fortunate. I actually don't really know why. Probably due to a lot of luck, but Australia's actually basically coming, especially my state, is coming out of lockdown now. We're not basically fully, completely done, but more or less, we
Mm,
can do things with groups of people up to about 30 people now, which more or less is quite a lot by our standards now.
yeah, but who knows? You may just like be a little bit behind us and get a second wave because that's
Yeah,
where we
true.
were about a
Yeah,
month ago.
yeah, and I think that's the big key. We're very fortunate in that, obviously, being an island nation, it's a lot easier to police our borders and like control
Yeah,
it coming in and out of the country. But we still haven't completely 100% eradicated it from the country. So all it takes is, yeah, 130 gathering, and then it just goes out from there. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we're back in lockdown again by the end of the year or early next year.
The island thing as well, though, Graham. Like in the the UK is also an island. We're not doing
True,
such a
yeah.
great job.
Yeah,
So
very true.
yeah, clearly being
Maybe it's
managed.
more the distance you have to get across the sea to actually get to us. It's not like it's a little bit harder, I guess.
Maybe so.
And probably just we're a very small population, relatively geographically distributed. It's a lot spread out.
I
So
suppose that helps. Yeah, yeah. Um, awesome. So, should we have a quick look through the blockers? So,
yeah. Let's do it. I can share my screen here.
awesome.
Um, so it looks like build logs is done, 100% in production. I want to make sure that it's actually that we're not seeing any NFS writes on the share server because there should be nothing left. We see them now based on that Thanos link, but it could just be that we're writing to temp files because we have a lot of we have like the temperature mounted on the shared. So after I confirm that we're 100%, sounds like we are, then I'll start the change issue to unmount
Nice.
like maybe a single server. Or I think I'll check to see if we did this on staging already, but if we haven't, I'll do it there first, and then we'll do a single server and roll it out slowly. And then we'll be done with the shared server. So that's really exciting.
Nice. That's
Um,
great. That's great.
I mean, I'm happy to take that up, Amy, but if you think, I don't know, does this belong to our team to unmount the shared server? Should we just do it?
I think we should probably just do it. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we can clean up on that. One thing, let's just check. Maybe we'll give them a couple of days just in case they hit any problem and reduce
And
the
they want to
traffic.
revert.
It was just
Yeah.
the other day. I think they went to 100%.
Yeah. That sounds good. I'll let them know that this will be the point of no return in the
Yeah,
change issue, and then they can chime in and
yeah,
give
that
me
makes sense. Yeah,
the green light for
and
that.
we don't need that for any of the outstanding pages stuff, do we?
Um, you mean the NFS server?
Yeah.
No, it's a separate. There's two virtual machines. One for these shared mounts, which included build traces, and the other one's dedicated to pages.
Okay, great. The only other thing, actually, let me follow up as well. We've got 3 or 4 sidekick queues that we don't know what they're doing. So maybe we should just double check on those as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like if you look at this Thanos, you can see that we have both reads going from web sidekick and API, writes going from sidekick and API. So that's interesting. I'm not sure why we have writes on API and we don't have writes for web. Usually I would expect this to be symmetrical. Uh, so yeah, I need to maybe look into this, see what's going on.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Okay. Yeah, so if we just, let's wrap up on those little bits, and then, I mean, maybe if we unmounted into staging, we could actually find out what's doing the rights.
Cool. So next is this charts issue, which is to split out services. So Graham, I think you're already familiar with this issue, and I think this might be the reason why we keep the Nginx ingress for the front-end services, because we're going to be routing traffic based on request paths. And I think Nginx ingress is probably the best way to do this. I did notice, and I'll show a little bit later, that we're using a lot of compute and memory for Nginx ingress. Like, it's surprising. I was expecting us to not have so many pods necessary for Nginx, but there were like, 7 or 8, I think, last time I looked.
Yeah. So just
so it is burning resources for sure.
So any standard ingress, Kubernetes ingress object allows you to do path-based matching and routing to pods based on that, though. So I don't see this as an ingress, an Nginx. Nginx implements it some way, but any ingress object, it's part of the specification to do that for Kubernetes ingress. So I'm not saying we get rid of it, but I'm just pointing out that we should be able to do this in any ingress that conforms to the specification. I think, if I'm understanding how we're doing the path-based routing there.
Yeah, what about, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think how it's actually done by different ingresses, I'm curious too. Like the GCP one would actually create a GCP HTTPS load balancer, which is a layer 7 load balancer to do it. You know, if we go down the path of eventually wanting to look at other proxies, I guess those other proxies that implement the ingress would do it as well. The question is here, so that block you've got there, is that from the ingress object, or is that like a config map for Nginx? Like, I'm trying to just determine, is this configuration at the ingress object level?
This is an example, so this is just like conceptual, I guess. Or no? Oh, I see. Like they're okay. It is not conceptual.
Yeah,
this is already. This is the existing path, right? So,
right. Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, so I was going to say, okay, so that part there makes more sense to me. Okay, so so we're saying, so is
I'm
this? Sorry. So are we saying we don't actually route this at the ingress level? Is that what we're saying at the moment?
What we're saying here is that right now we have these paths for Nginx ingress. Although I'm not aware, this is the conceptual, sorry. We have these paths for, I think, no, actually, like, this is also conceptual. We don't have this right now. We're not doing anything special for API.
That makes sense.
There is one for admin sidekick, and there's one for slash. So basically, we have very basic configuration now, and the idea was to extend it to have different pod groups for different request paths. And I'm not sure whether those groups will be like totally like configurable, so you can like add more, or whether we're going to hard code preset paths. It'd be nice if it was configurable, but I'm not sure how the configuration will look. And I think Jason is working that out.
Okay. So that makes sense to me. So yeah, at the moment, our ingress object is very simple. It just routes everything to one backend service. We want to explode it out for different endpoints, and that makes sense. And that, in theory, if done right in the ingress object, should be independent of what ingress tooling, like what ingress controller we use now in the future. Once again, I'm not saying we move away from ingress Nginx. You know, if it works, that's fine. But it's good to know that if we do it this way correctly, should we ever want to move away in the future, it shouldn't actually take any more effort on the chart side.
Yeah, I think so. Unless if there are other Nginx features that we would take advantage of. But I think so
but
far.
Those features should be done in annotations anyway, which we can potentially we can already customize annotations, and we can already customize annotations.
Yeah. Okay. So I think Jason was planning to work on this week. I haven't heard any update from him. I don't think there's been an update on the issue. So I doubt anything significant is going to be done this week, but we'll see. Maybe next week.
And just to clarify, we have a horizontal pod autoscaler on Ingress Nginx at the moment, so we know it's always going to be scaled up to take the load.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, cool.
Next is Prometheus metrics for GitLab shell. I suggested that we remove this from the blocker list. Amy, can I just remove this?
So the only reason I didn't was I'm a little confused. So Skubek put a comment on it last week, which I sort of re-emphasizing it's a blocker. So I think we should keep these in sync.
Okay, let's wait till he comes back then, and I can see what he means by this.
So I think we should keep it on this list whilst we have that comment in here. But we don't. There's no progress on this at the moment, so that's fine to move along.
Okay. That's good. Unified structured logging across Git. So this was maybe, I see, this is an APAC, and we decided that like this was going to be a blocker for moving the front end, but not a blocker yet for Git HTTPS and Git SSH. Have you checked in with Robert to see what his timeline is for this?
I haven't actually, but I can definitely do that. Do we need this whole APAC, or are there certain parts that are important for us?
Let's see. We need this, we need that, we need this. I mean, like, I don't know if all of these need to be separate issues, but whatever. I think, like, yeah, we need all of the issues here.
Okay, I'll follow up.
Yeah. Cool. And this is the database load balancing on pod start. So we're kind of like, we made a configuration change last week that delayed our readiness check by 60 seconds so that we don't actually start saying that a pod is ready for 60 seconds after it boots. And this is saving us from this issue because by the time we wait for that 60 seconds, usually load balancing is pretty close to being initialized by then. If we want to reduce that time, which I think we could, then maybe this will become an issue. I just don't know what, it's kind of bad to be using the primaries, but it seems like we would only be using the primary database for 25% of the pods that are surged on an upgrade. And then once those pods are fully booted and ready, then they'll switch over to using the replicas. I think we should just keep this on our radar. I don't know. I can remove it from the blocking list for now, but
yeah,
I don't know. Stan had a comment here, like maybe we could lower the interval, but he's not sure like what the effect of that would be. I don't know.
So I'm interested in this because I'm trying to push forward with getting auto upgrades enabled in production for GKE, and obviously things like containers taking longer to boot and things like that basically massively blow out our upgrade times. And not only do I want to get auto upgrades enabled, we're now Kubernetes 1.16, which we're running, is no longer actually in the release channel we're in. They've pushed everyone to 1.17. So we're continually playing catch up, which is fine. It's what I kind of always expected. But so I don't think this is a blocker, but I do agree this needs to be kept on the radar. Anything we can do to make our pod shuffling quicker, I think is good to keep on the radar.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what I would like to do is try to do what Stan suggested here, which is to increase the frequency of these checks when the replica starts. So maybe we can look into that. But I think I'm going to take this off the blocker list for now.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. Cool. And then the pages stuff is just continuing on. So that seems to be going fine. We're still hoping we may have some stuff in around December, but we'll see how it goes.
For other labeled issues, this I think we can just remove it since we have the environment variable workaround. So I'm going to take the blocker label off. But it's still, I think like once we've run this for a while on gitlab.com, we'll probably just compile it in so we don't need to set the environment variable anymore. And that's pretty much it. This one still needs investigation, this proxy request buffering. We've turned it off by default. And this is one thing, Graham, that I was thinking of, like it's very Nginx specific. Yeah, so we turned it off for globally right now.
Sure.
We have to decide at some point whether we want to conditionally enable it per path. I think for self-managed, it's more important because they don't typically have a CDN in front like we do.
Right. Yep.
So yeah, Cloud Pages native support. That's also on the blocker list. So I think that's pretty much it. So the list is pretty small right now. Once we have Pages off, it's going to be great.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah. Great. So demo. I just wanted to kind of show you what's going on with Git HTTPS now that we're 100% in production. And the first thing to brag about here is that our latency is like amazing right now. We're even at like 100% apdex, which is not something we've ever seen before on virtual machines. That's because we were pretty under provisioned. We're also like at 100% to 99.9 even during deploys, which is much better than where we were before when we had this Nginx balancing issue. So I think like the replicas, setting the max unavailable to 0 has really shown that it does work, like we're seeing like basically no interruption at all during deployments. So that's really cool. We have right now about 6,000 requests per second on the main stage on Canary. I adjusted this recently, so these bands haven't caught up yet, but now we're at about 200 requests per second. This was actually set incorrectly for a little bit. If I move this to like 2 days, you can see like we were way above what we probably should have been for Canary. And the cool thing about this was that the regional cluster just scaled up appropriately, and we didn't really even notice that we were running like a lot more traffic to Canary than we should have been, which shows to me that like I think if we did have to take out a zone and set it to like drain, I think like we could probably, although pods take a long time to start, I think there'd only be a small window of interruption, and then we can have the other zones take over.
True. Very true.
Let's take a look. I think there was like a deploy happening, so we might see some churn right now on the pods, but we can take a look at our workloads. Yeah, so these messages kind of, it gives you like the console at least gives you like these nasty looking red error messages, but this always happens whenever we have scaling events or like when things are in flux. So Canary Web Service is running at 12 pods right now. I lowered the minimum to 5, so I think this is about right. You can see that I was adjusting this. I've been adjusting this over time. I think I'm going to stick with what we have right now, which is for a single pod. I'm setting the CPU request to about 2. This also takes into account per course requests as well. So that's why it's like a fractional 2.3. And you can see it seems like it might be a little bit high, but I tried to lower this and I wasn't happy with the results. So I think what I may do is actually move the limit down closer to the requests and leave the requests kind of high. Memory also looks kind of high, but I'm very nervous about making this lower, especially now that we're going to enable action cable. So Graham, what do you think? Like, do you think we should just like maybe bring the limit down a bit, or would you say like it's okay to have this buffer? I mean, it seems like it's safer, right?
Yeah, I would say it's probably okay to have the like. What it's at 2 at the moment, right? Yeah. So and you really wouldn't want to go much lower. You could probably drop it to 1.5. I reckon if you bring by bringing the limit down, you're going to make it easy to schedule more pods on the node where it's running, right? Like the limit is what it determines whether the scheduler can fit how much on the node. So
I thought it was request that it took into account for that. Like it takes the average load across all of the pods and see how it matches requests. Or is it limit?
I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it's limit, but I could be wrong, and that would be something to check because maybe you're right. It's requests. It schedules what it can request, but then when things go up to their limit, that's how it determines who to evict. That's
how it works. Yeah. So I think like if our CPU load starts going over the requests by a certain percentage, or the average goes over a certain percentage, that's when it starts spitting up new pods.
Sure. So I think lowering the limit is probably good anyway, because if you don't think there's any reason for it to use that much memory or CPU beyond like unless it's like a memory leak or something bad, then obviously lowering the request as well. If you make the requests the same as the limit, it'll change the QoS class on the pods as well. I'm not sure if that's a big deal. It's kind of nice. It means the pods will guaranteed to never be evicted, which I'm not sure if we care about. Maybe that's a nice thing. Maybe it's not nice.
Yeah, I mean, so far we haven't been seeing a lot of evictions because the limits are so high. But like, maybe I'll start by bringing the CPU limit down to like 3, and maybe bring the memory limit down a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So that's looking good for cluster sizes. Come on. So Git HTTPS, this is for the Canary. We currently have 5 nodes. This may come down a little bit more since I just lowered the floor for the number of pods. Whereas before on Canary, we had about 3. So, but then again, on Canary before we had like not as much traffic. So it's kind of hard to make a direct comparison. For the zonal clusters, currently Git HTTPS here, we have 9, 12. So we're not very balanced when it comes to traffic. It's maybe a little bit surprising, but I don't know to think about that. So, what, like 23, so about 30 or so nodes, where before we were running about 25. But then again, we were way, I think, under provisioned for the traffic we were having. Going back to workloads, let me just show you the zonal clusters. So the floor for pods is at 30, and you can see like we're above the floor, so that's good. I think we're either doing a deploy or we just finished a deploy, so this may come down a bit. Sure. Let's take a look at one of these. So similar to Canary, seems like about right. Like I said, like maybe we can bring down the limits a bit. So I've made a few adjustments. Let's just take a look at one of the pods. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, seems about right. I think for now, we're going to be doing an action cable experiment today, so we'll see what that is, how that has an effect on it.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
That's pretty much it. Next things that we're going to be doing is the biggest problem we have right now, Graham, is this auto deploy and configuration changes stomping on each other. So I need to figure out how we can limit or put a blocker in for auto deploys so that if there are pending configuration changes, we spin or maybe fail. Right now, it seems like we're thinking that we'll just parse the diff output, which sucks, but I don't know how else to do it.
Like the Helm diff output and just be like, oh yeah, there's
other things that
I don't
like
know.
are not images. Yeah.
Can we? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to think of some way that's nicer, but beyond just like looking at what the different state is, you got nothing.
Cool. Are you involved with the Tanka stuff that is being worked on?
Yep.
Peripherally. Okay. Is there anything else is there anything you would like to show us?
No. Honestly, I wish I've had more time to work on a lot of the Kubernetes stuff at the moment, but I've been doing this, trying to wrap up all the secrets manager stuff just so I can not have to think about secrets ever again. And I've just been looking at the more of the platform side GKE upgrades and bits and pieces. I'm definitely interested in revisiting, talking about like the Helm file changes and Tanka and all that stuff. I'm definitely interested in revisiting what we have with GitLab Helm files and things like that and making sure what we've got is still correct and still all fine. We've got the other big thing that's coming up that's going to impact us is November, I think it's 12th. Helm 2 gets finally depreciated and all the Helm repos go away. So I've located where they're kind of getting split and fractured all over the internet. But we're going to have a lot of CI jobs break on that day unless we get ahead of that, which I'm trying to do now and just try and find new places for things and change chart locations and stuff. It won't break GitLab com because we host our own chart and that's fine. Yeah. But those are kind of the big things.
Prometheus is going to be affected, right?
Yeah. So talking to observability, like they're kind of in a race now of trying to move things to Tanka and which kind of affects this, doesn't really, but like the Prometheus itself, regardless of Helm charts, they're like converting more to operators. So they've got a bunch of other work. So it'll really depend on where they land. All of the Prometheus ecosystem has defined where they're moving to. And I think most of our stuff is updated to that. It may not have, I'll double check that. So I think we'll be safe there. And then the only other things were things like, I think Plant UML were okay. Elasticsearch might be okay. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we have a fork of that, so it's fine.
Cool. And in console, I think we forked as well.
Yes, no.
Anyway.
Yeah, I think we're using the official chart for that, but I'll have to double check. But do you have an issue that we can track?
No,
for this?
I don't. No,
okay.
I do. I do. Do I?
Because I think what we probably should do is just look through GitLab Helm files, since that's the project that's going to be affected, and see which charts are impacted and make sure that we have the locations for them.
I'll try and find the issue. If we haven't got one, I'll make one. I know there's one for the GitLab product itself, which I've been looking at for other bits and pieces. Hang on. This is the one I'm talking about. No. Anyway, I won't tie people's time now, me looking through emails. But yeah, I think, now that we've got the multi-cluster, now that we've got, we're looking at trying to make auto-deploy block, and we've got Tanka, I'm doing a very quick re-review now of everything in GitLab Helm files and, making sure is this right location? Is this working for us? The other thing I've done, which I'll put up for review tomorrow, you may have seen the comment, you may not, is I've done the work to make the bootstrapping issue, like pulling all that out. So now it should be, you add a new cluster to Terraform, you run the GitLab com job, and it should do the whole bootstrapping, the storage class, the CI jobs, the k8s workloads user, and all the other bits and pieces. And then we just get rid of that out of GitLab Helm files, and that trims that down as well. And then it should just be mostly observability tools and Cloudflare exporter, I think is the other thing.
Okay, yeah, I mean, like, I'm looking forward to seeing it, because when I did it, it was not simple. So
yeah, look,
maybe,
I say simple as in I did the Terraform work and it looked like the thing was simple, but figuring out the hard part will be getting the CI jobs to do it right in the order it needs to be done across all our environments. And I do agree that's going to be I haven't even figured out how that's going to work yet. So
cool.
Do we need to do anything on our side? Like, this is, I suppose, like protecting against the repo going away, but do we need to also think about the upgrade to Helm 3?
So that is the other thing that that's the other kind of big thing that I would like to kind of address in the next few months is Helm 3 upgrades. I know we've kind of circled around this a few times. I know Scarbeck's looked at it a few times, and I think we've always been like, oh, it's going to be a bit yucky to do and cost us some time and effort. And we've kind of kicked the can down the road a little bit, but it seems like we're just going to have to bite the bullet, I think, and do it at some point. We're in a better position now with zonal clusters than we were before, because at least before we had everything on one cluster and was kind of like, trying to mess with everything on one cluster. I had a quick look, and I think we can, believe it or not, depending on how we set things up, we can actually run two versions of Helm side by. I don't want to do this, but we can run two versions of Helm side by side in some kind of small intermediate term, which may make change request, like the changeover, easier if we can bite it off piece by piece. But I think at the end of the day, we just got to do a change request, and someone's got to sit down and just run the Helm 2 to 3 and run the extra commands to need it to unfuts itself and build a new Docker image and all that stuff.
Cool. With regard to your comment I saw about spinning up a new cluster in a different region for registry.
Yeah.
Are you seriously considering that? And what was the motivation? Was the GCS outage or something, or what?
It wasn't like a definite serious. It was a hypothetical, because I was thinking about that outage. And I was like, in theory, with all of the tooling we have now and everything we've done with the multi-zonal and everything, we should be in a point where we create a new GKE cluster in Terraform in, say, US West somewhere.
Yeah.
And that comes up. We run the GitLab Helm files or whatever we need to run, GitLab com chart, and that's just another Helm file environment that it just talks to a different cluster and deploys things. And we can say, please only deploy the registry here. So now we've got some registry pods running in US West. We have registry pods running in other clusters. GCS should be replicating that. I'm pretty sure GCS replication is multi-regional. Then in theory, we have another Kubernetes cluster and another endpoint, which we could even stick behind HA proxy, like as a fallback endpoint, so that should we ever have an issue with one region, and assuming that it's a GCS issue that's only isolated to that region and not everywhere, that we could actually route traffic over. And it's kind of the first experiment of, could we actually do something that's slightly geo-redundant? Is that interesting to people? Is geo-redundancy we're aiming for? It doesn't seem like there was that much appetite, but maybe for something like registry where it's very simple, we could do something like that. It'll cost us more.
It makes no sense to do it until we get rid of HA proxy in the middle, because HA proxy is in this. HA proxy is already in one region.
Yeah.
That's if we have HA proxy in multiple regions as well.
And then you got, what do you front it with then? I guess Cloudflare, but that doesn't, I don't see how Cloudflare would.
No, you're fronting it with the TCP load balancer, which is multi-region, I assume.
Right, yeah.
Maybe it isn't, actually. It isn't, is it?
Well, that's what I was talking about. That Anthos, the Google Ingress the Google Anthos Ingress, which is more expensive than their normal stuff, is like literally designed for, you know, the Anycast route comes in and it routes you to a load balancer in that region, and then you talk to the local GKE cluster.
I see.
So
yeah, so we'd have to do something like that. So I think the first step for us would be probably to get rid of HA proxy altogether for registry, and then after we have something else in front, maybe we switch to this load balancer first, and then we start adding more. But I don't know, man, because like registry depends on the API. So
does it? See, I thought it was completely. Yeah, right. Okay. Well, then there's no point doing part of our stack geo if we can't do it all. So
yeah, like
I thought there was no real dependency, but yeah.
So the dependencies there are the registry service itself doesn't go out to the API, but the Docker daemon on your laptop, on your workstation, the Docker client gets a redirect when it's not authentic. When you do a Docker pull, it gets this redirect to say like, hey, you need to be authorized. So then we go out to gitlab.com to get authorization. So if there was a regional outage, no one would be able to authorize their Docker connections.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would.
Yeah, it's kind of like we have to either do everything or, you know, nothing.
Yeah, I mean maybe public pools would work, but yeah, I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, as I said, it was just an idea, trying to think about that issue and how we could avoid it. But I guess I don't know what the priority is for geographic redundancy in general. Like, it doesn't seem like we've given it much priority, which is fine if it's not a priority.
Well, there is a push to get geo on staging that's been coming from the higher levels. So that might be the story for geo redundancy, is just to have a very expensive cold standby.
Yeah. Maybe we could scale down the pods at least just like scale them up or something. But yeah.
That would be interesting. Yeah, actually, that could work.
In theory, our tooling now, I think, could handle it. I think it's more about GitLab itself handling it internally, which who knows how that would.
I don't know. Like, I think thinking about it, like to do geo for what we have in Kubernetes now, wouldn't be too bad, right? We would just create another cluster, and then we would have, which would be another environment in Helm files, and then we would have like, you know, configuration that says it's a geo cluster. So yeah, it could possibly work, but
it would really be like the database and Gitly access would obviously be slower, because database is still, that's the hard part, right, of trying to get that geo.
The way that we thought that would work would be that you have a replica in the alternate region, and then you do a database failover to the replica, and then your replicas are in different regions at that point, so that slows things down a bit. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, look, I think, so I'm also looking at this, keeping the configure team on the GitLab cast stuff moving. So I'll be trying out, I'm separating them on a subdomain and trying them without HA proxy first. So I can let you know how that's going if you're interested in removing HA proxy for registry, at least like any gotchas, performance problems, or like configuration issues. So maybe that's the kind of first step, and we can see how we can have a discussion about what we want to do with the registry endpoint in the future, if we want to remove HA proxy or not.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. Well, I think we've done everything. Anything else, Amy?
No, I think we've covered everything.
Cool.
All
right.
Thanks for joining us, Graham.
No, that's all right. Thank you very much for getting up early and joining me.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks very much. See you later, everyone.
Yep.
See you later.
Guys.